Welcome to the Neil Thomas Show. I am your host, Neil Thomas. Taps was first played at Harrison's Landing, Virginia in July 1862. Within 9 months, it was adopted by both the Union and Confederate forces. In 1891, taps became a standard component of U.S. military funerals. It is truly an honor for you to spend a few moments of your Memorial Day with me. Today is a day of remembrance. It is a day of family. And as you celebrate this 3-day weekend with your family, I ask that at 3 o'clock your time, wherever you're at, take a moment of silence. And then after that moment, listen to your surroundings. My guess is that somebody around you will be playing those 24 notes. There's an organization, Taps Across America, that has got thousands of volunteers who will be playing taps, those 24 notes, at 3 o'clock. The National Moment of Remembrance is an annual event that asks Americans, wherever they are at 3 o'clock p.m., to pause for the duration of 1 minute to remember those who have died in military service to the United States. The time 3 o'clock was chosen because it is the time when most Americans are enjoying time off from work for the national holiday. The moment was first proclaimed in May 2000 for Memorial Day that year and was put into law by the United States Congress in December of 2000. Of all the military bugle calls, none is so easily recognized or more apt to evoke emotion than taps. The melody is both eloquent and haunting, and the history of its origin is interesting and somewhat clouded in controversy and myth. The use of taps is unique to the United States military, as the call is sounded at funerals, wreath-laying ceremonies, and memorial services. Taps originally began as a signal to extinguish lights. Up until the Civil War, the infantry call for extinguished lights was the one set down in the infantry manuals, which had been borrowed from the French. The music for taps was changed by Major General David Adams Butterfield for his brigade in July 1862. Butterfield was not pleased with the call for extinguished lights, feeling that it was too formal to signal the day's end. With the help of the brigade bugler, Oliver Wilcox Norton, he created taps to honor his men while in camp at Harrison's Landing, Virginia, following the 7 days battle during the Peninsular Campaign. Butterfield did not compose taps, but actually revised an earlier bugle call. The call we know today as taps existed in an earlier version of the call tattoo, which had gone out of use by the Civil War. Butterfield knew this early call from his days before the war as a colonel in the 12th New York Militia. As a signal of the end of the day, armies have used tattoo to alert troops to prepare for the evening roll call. Butterfield took the last 5.5 measures of the tattoo and revised them down into the 24 notes we know today. The new call soon spread to the other units of the Union Army. Oliver Wilcox Norton wrote about the experience later in his life. During the early part of the Civil War, I was bugler at the headquarters of Butterfield's brigade. One day, soon after the 7 days battle on the peninsula, when the Army of the Potomac was lying in camp at Harrison's Landing, General Daniel Butterfield sent to me and showing me some notes on a staff written in pencil on the back of an envelope, asked me to sound them on my bugle. I did this several times, playing the music as written. He changed it somewhat, lengthening some notes and shortening others, but retaining the melody as he gave it to me. After getting it to his satisfaction, he directed me to sound that call for taps thereafter in place of the regulation call. The music was beautiful on that summer night and was heard far beyond the limits of our brigade. The next day, I was visited by several buglers from neighboring brigades, asking for copies of the music, which I gladly furnished. I think no general order was issued from Army headquarters authorizing the substitution of this for the regulation call, but as each brigade commander exercised his own discretion in such minor matters, the call was gradually taken up through the Army of the Potomac. The earliest official reference to the mandatory use of taps at military funeral ceremonies is found in the U.S. Army Infantry Drill Regulations for 1891. Although it had doubtless been used unofficially long before that time, under its former designation, extinguished lights, the first use of taps at a funeral was during the Peninsular Campaign in Virginia. Captain John C. Tidball of Battery A, 2nd Artillery, ordered it played for the burial of a cannoneer killed in action. Because the enemy was close, he worried that the traditional 3 volleys would renew fighting. The origin of the word taps is thought to have come from the Dutch word for tattoo, taptoe, more likely than taps. Comes from the 3 drum taps that were beat for the signal of extinguished lights when a bugle was not used. Other stories of the origin of taps exist. A popular myth is that that a northern boy who was killed fighting for the South, his father, a captain in the Union Army, came upon his son's body in the battlefield and fought the notes to taps in a pocket, and found the notes to taps in a pocket of the dead boy's Confederate uniform. There is no evidence to back up this story or the existence of the captain or his son. As with many other customs, the 24 notes that comprise this solemn tradition began long ago and continue to this day. Although General Butterfield merely revised an earlier bugle call, his role in producing those 24 notes gave him a place in the history of both music and war. Today, taps is sounded at the final call every evening on military installations or at military funerals. In 2012, Congress recognized taps as the National Song of Remembrance. I don't promote a lot on this program, but tapsacrossamerica.org is a fantastic organization and certainly could use your support. If you haven't guessed it, we are going to be setting aside the typical Neil Thomas show today, and we're going to be discussing Memorial Day. This day is far too important to be discussing political matters, so I will happily be discussing the importance of Memorial Day. Now, while the first commemorative Memorial Day events weren't held in the United States until the late 19th century, the practice of honoring those who have fallen in battle dates back thousands of years. The ancient Greeks and Romans held annual events in remembrance for loved ones, including soldiers, each year, festooning their graves with flowers and holding public festivals and feasts in their honor. The Athens public funerals for fallen soldiers were held after each battle, with the remains of the dead on display for public mourning before a funeral procession took them to their interment. One of the earliest commemorations was organized by recently freed African Americans. As the Civil War neared its end, thousands of Union soldiers, held as prisoners of war, were herded into a series of hastily assembled camps in Charleston, South Carolina. Conditions at the camp, a former racetrack near the city's citadel, were so bad that more than 250 prisoners died from disease or exposure and were buried in mass grave behind the track's grandstand. 3 weeks after the Confederate surrender, an unusual procession entered the former camp on May 1st, 1865. More than 1,000 people recently freed from enslavement, accompanied by regiments of the U.S. colored troops, including the Massachusetts 54th Infantry, and a handful of white Charlestonians gathering in the camp to consecrate a new proper burial site for the Union dead. The group sang hymns, gave readings, and distributed flowers around the cemetery, which they dedicated to the martyrs of the race course. And the holiday's founder had a long and distinguished career. May 1868, General John A. Logan, the commander-in-chief of the Union veterans group known as the Grand Army of the Republic, issued a decree that May 30th should become a nationwide day of commemoration for the more than 620,000 soldiers killed in the recently ended Civil War. On Decoration Day, as Logan dubbed it, Americans should lay flowers and decorate the graves of the war dead, whose bodies now lay in almost every city, village, and hamlet churchyard in the land. According to legend, Logan chose May 30th because it was a rare day that didn't fall on the anniversary of a Civil War battle, though some historians believe the date was selected to ensure that flowers across the country would be in full bloom. After the war, Logan, who had served as a U.S. congressman before resigning to rejoin the Army, returned to his political career, eventually serving in both the House and Senate, and was the unsuccessful Republican candidate for vice president in 1884. When he died 2 years later, Logan's body laid in state in the rotunda of the United States Capitol, making him one of just 33 people who received the honor. Today's Washington, D.C.'s Logan Circle and several townships across the country are named in honor of this champion of veterans and those killed in battle. Logan likely adapted the idea from earlier events in the South. Even before the war ended, women's groups across much of the South were gathering informally to decorate the graves of the Confederate dead. In April 1886, the Ladies' Memorial Association of Columbus, Georgia, resolved to commemorate the fallen once a year, a decision that seems to have influenced John Logan to follow suit, according to his own wife. However, Southern commemorations were rarely held on one standard day. with observations differing by state and spread out across much of the spring and early summer. It's a tradition that continues today. 9 southern states officially recognize a Confederate Memorial Day, with events held on Confederate President Jefferson Davis's birthday, the day on which General Thomas Stonewall Jackson was killed, or to commemorate other symbolic events. And it actually didn't become a federal holiday until 1971. Americans embraced the notion of Decoration Day immediately. The first year, more than 27 states held some sort of ceremony, with more than 5,000 people in attendance at a ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery. By 1890, every former state of the Union had adopted it as an official holiday, but for more than 50 years, the holiday was used to commemorate those killed just in the Civil War and not in any other American conflict. It wasn't until America's entry into World War I that the tradition was expanded to include those killed in all wars, and Memorial Day was not officially recognized nationwide until the 1970s, when America deeply embroiled in the Vietnam War. It was actually a long road from Decoration Day to an official Memorial Day. Although the term Memorial Day was used beginning in the 1880s, the holiday was officially known as Decoration Day for more than a century, when it was changed by federal law. 4 years later, the Uniform Monday Holiday Act of 1968 finally went into effect, moving Memorial Day from its traditional observance on May 30th, regardless of the day of the week, to a set day, the last Monday in May. The move has not been without controversy, though veterans groups concerned that more Americans associate the holiday with the first long weekend of the summer and not its intended purpose to honor the nation's war dead continue to lobby for a return to the May 30 observances. For more than 20 years, their cause was championed by Hawaiian Senator and decorated World War II veteran Daniel Inouye, who until his 2012 death reintroduced legislation to support of the change at the start of every congressional term. More than 20 towns claim to be the holiday's birthplace, but only one has federal recognition. For almost as long as there's been a holiday, there's been a rivalry about who celebrated it first. Boylesburg, Pennsylvania, bases its claim on an 1864 gathering of women to mourn those recently killed at Gettysburg. In Carbondale, Illinois, they're certain that they were the first thanks to an 1866 parade led in part by John Logan, who 2 years later would lead the charge for an official holiday. There are even 2 dueling Columbus challengers, one in Mississippi, the other in Georgia, who have battled it out for Memorial Day supremacy for decades. Only one town, however, has received the official seal of approval from the U.S. government in 1966, 100 years after the town of Waterloo, New York, shuttered its businesses and took to the streets for the first of many continuous community-wide celebrations. President Lyndon Johnson signed legislation recently passed by the U.S. Congress declaring the tiny upstate village the official birthplace of Memorial Day. Wearing a red poppy on Memorial Day began with a World War I poem. In the spring of 1915, bright red flowers began poking through the battle-ravaged land across northern France and Flanders, northern Belgium. Canadian Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae, who served as a brigade surgeon for an Allied artillery unit, spotted a cluster of poppies shortly after serving as a brigade surgeon during the bloody Second Battle of Ypres. The sight of the bright red flowers against the dreary backdrop of war inspired McCrae to pen the poem In Flanders Field, in which he gives voice to the soldiers who had been killed in battle and lay buried beneath the poppy-covered grounds. Later that year, a Georgia teacher and volunteer war worker named Monia Michael read the poem in Ladies' Home Journal and wrote her own poem, We Shall Keep the Faith, to begin a campaign to make a poppy the symbol of tribute to all those who have died in war. The poppy remains a symbol of remembrance to this day. And of course, Memorial Day traditions have evolved over the years. Despite the increasing celebration of the holiday as a summer rite of passage, there are some formal rituals still on the books. The American flag should be hung at half-staff until noon on Memorial Day, then raised to the top of the staff. And since 2000, when the U.S. Congress passed legislation, all Americans are encouraged to pause for a national moment of remembrance at 3 p.m. local time. The federal government has also used the holiday to honor non-veterans. The Lincoln Memorial was dedicated on Memorial 1922. Again, I'd like to thank you for making me a very small part of your Memorial Day holiday. I do hope that you've enjoyed your weekend and that you will take a moment to remember all those that have given their lives so that we have the freedoms that we get to enjoy in this country. This still is the greatest country on the land, and it is worth fighting for. I know that I complain about the government in this program quite a bit, but I do want to assure you that there is no better place on this planet. There is no place that I would rather be, and I am proud to bring this program to you each and every week, to your families, and to you. God bless.